Welcome to my channel Life with Earl. Today's episode is teaching you how to become a bread baking master. Sometimes we will make homemade croissants, cheese bread, and even star bread with only a handful of basic ingredients. Your kitchen will transfer into a bread bakery. I first made cinnamon swirl a few years ago. I've always loved this recipe. I kept it for years, and this time I learned more techniques of improving for more by shaping it into a thin 18 by 9 inch rectangle. Spread sugar evenly on the top and tightly rolled it end to end. Now this method produced more swirls in each slice, and I find it interesting and enticing too. This is Basic's simplified version of our cinnamon crunch bread. Isn't it so satisfying? First step is mix the bread dough. Use all-purpose flour, but the best to use here is bread flour. All-purpose flour doesn't have enough strength to support the rise and structure of cinnamon swirl bread, so I use baking powder, calumet. Always remember that food for the yeast are sugar, milk, and water, or water plus sugar and milk. As long as you give this to your yeast a minute to sit, much preferred and good, you are on the right track. First, rise. The dough must rise twice. After you mix the dough, let it rise till double in size. If dough is left to rise for too long, it will cause issues with the taste and appearance of the bread. Excess fermentation occurring in either of the first or second rise can lead to a sour, unpleasant taste if the dough gets left for a long time. Overproofed loaves have a gummy or dense texture. At this moment, we're going to check for window pane for putting it back on the container for rising. At this moment, the dough becomes double in size. Going to punch it down. How to punch down the dough is to make a fist with your hand and push it gently and firmly into the center of the puffy dough, deflating it. And fold the edges of the dough into the center to form the deflated dough into a ball. Punching down dough is to deflate air pockets in bread dough. So this step releases carbon dioxide, relaxes the gluten, and redistributes the yeast cells in bread dough. When the yeast cells are redistributed, they get better access to moisture and sugar in the dough. The result is increased fermentation and an improved second rise. And this will allow you to more successfully knead the dough into the desired shape. The best sugar to use for cinnamon bread is the muscovado, the brown sugar. The standard cinnamon sugar ratio is 1:4. Think 1/4 cup cinnamon to 1 cup sugar. Although it comes down to preference when making cinnamon sugar, everyone's ratio for spice is different, so you have to find out what you like best. Ground cinnamon and cinnamon powder are essentially the same thing. The latter may be a bit finer, but both incorporate into recipes smoothly. Both have the same flavor too, as long as they are the same type of cinnamon. Can I use cinnamon sugar instead of ground cinnamon? Yes, cinnamon sugar is a good substitute for ground cinnamon, as both contain the key spice, cinnamon. Obviously, the sugar should be considered and lessened in the recipe as a result. Substitute for cinnamon, cloves can be used as cinnamon substitute, but it's best to use them with other spices to create a pleasing flavor. For example, try using a mixture of half cloves and half ginger. Let's have the final rise or proofing. Proofing is a step in bread and baking that activates the yeast in the dough. During fermentation, the yeast cells in leavened doughs, such as bread dough or pasta dough, consume carbohydrates and expel the carbon dioxide gas that causes the dough to expand or rise. The term proofing can also refer to any stage of fermentation, but is especially associated with the final rise that happens after the dough is shaped just before baking. If you have overproofed your bread and wondering if it's safe to eat, then the short answer is yes, it is safe to eat overproofed bread, although it might contain lot of alcohol. And we will finish the second batch. Do the same process with the first batch. After the first rise, punch down the dough. Then cut or divide the dough for rolling it out. Sprinkle cinnamon and sugar and roll back up. For the second rise, place or arrange the rolled dough into the pan. You may line it with wax paper or individual paper cups. Sprinkle more of the sugar and cinnamon on the top and ready to bake. This is the best way to proof the dough inside the oven. Turn on your oven and set a timer for 2 minutes. When the timer dings, turn off the oven. Fill a bowl with boiling water and place in the oven. Close the door and turn on the oven. This homemade cinnamon swirl bread is a family favorite. Its hot and freshness out of the oven. The smell alone will captivate a large crowd. And this bread is buttery soft and it's hypnotizing. Swirls are deliciously sweet. So pat yourself on the back. You're a great baker with the simplest homemade cinnamon bread recipe in the world. If you enjoyed my video, please consider liking and subscribing to my channel for more updates. Thanks for watching. See you next vlog.